trying. I always tell people, they're like, wow, that's impressive. I didn't get in.
It cost me about $60 in a store. Like, really, it's fine. Welcome, everybody, to How to Split a Toaster, a divorce podcast about saving your relationships from True Story FM. Today, your toaster's got some more questions.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Seth Nelson. As always, I'm here with my good friend, Pete. Pete, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Listener question day.
It's a big one.
They're huge.
They just keep coming in.
I know. I know.
So much.
So
here we go.
We'll just rip through them. I know I've glanced at them. So
Yeah.
I haven't done any legal research preparing for this podcast, but we'll see how we do.
That's okay. I'm ready to go. We're going to start off with an easy one. This one, you're going to love this one, I think.
Okay.
This one says, how should I handle dating before my divorce is finalized? That's the whole question, but it implies some things, right? How do you handle this?
Okay, so in the show notes, we're just going to give you Andy's contact information.
Good, because he is not available.
Married,
but
happily married.
Yeah.
But, you got to ease into it. And you're used to being with a married guy. So maybe
start with
a married guy. So,
yeah. He'll love it.
Okay, no, this is a good question. It happens a lot. So the first thing I would tell you is this is my wish list that no one listens to as their lawyer.
Okay.
And people are human and they're going to live their lives. So don't date. Wait till your divorce is over. Now that I've given you that I'm not really giving legal advice. I'm telling you what I tell people. Now people say, I'm not going to listen to that, Seth. So what can I do? Keep it on the down low.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell your friends that are going to get back to your spouse. If you're living in the same house, don't be texting all the time. Like, I'm assuming hopefully that you're not in the same house. You have some privacy. Don't let the children know. Don't bring the person around the children. Don't post on social media. Don't go to places that you typically frequent and you will be seen. Mm-hmm. You want to keep this on the down low. That is my strong advice. Why? Because even after people are divorced, and that your former spouse, for example, moves on and is with somebody else, but then you find somebody else, sometimes they freak out and they start causing all sorts of problems. It's not logical, but it happens. So you never know how you being in a relationship is going to negatively impact what your current spouse is doing in a divorce. So that's my advice.
Okay. Keep it on the down low. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. This one comes from Blue, who writes, my wife wants a divorce. I want to fight for our marriage. Have you ever seen a circumstance like this in which the divorce process actually saves a marriage?
Yes. So part of that reason that people are shocked by that answer is usually by the time they call us, divorce attorneys. They've been thinking about divorce for a long time, usually an average of 3 years. But sometimes that's the wake-up call. And depending on what the underlying issues are that got you to this point, which I'm always a big believer is communication, but sometimes it's money and how is money handled. So I've done more than one post-nuptial agreement during a pendency of a divorce that discussed how all the money is going to be handled during the marriage and in the event of a divorce. And once they got the money issues worked out, still married to this day as far as I know.
Wow.
If it's parenting issues, that can be a little tougher. But some things that people have done is they've really decided that and had to have that like a just heartfelt talk with each other that we parent differently, but neither one of them is wrong. So, okay. And that's with all parents, right? Everybody knows, all the kids know who's the stricter parent on something and who's the more lenient parent on the other thing. Like everybody knows it, and the kids manipulate the parents to get what they want. So sometimes when it came to parenting, they would kind of say to each other, who's the parent on duty? And I'm going to let you just run it. And unless it's a safety issue, unless it's a huge deal, just let him do it. If he's going to feed him mac and cheese on his night when he's parent on duty, you can make sure they eat their vegetables the next day. So sometimes working out these parenting issues. Now, there's a lot of professionals, and I don't mean necessarily a marriage counselor, though I'm assuming you've tried that. But if not, please do. Sometimes you can go to a parent coordinator. Now, a parent coordinator is a professional who helps people co-parent when they're not living under the same roof. No reason why they can't help you co-parent when you are living under the same roof. So give it a try.
They'll do that? Like they'll do that?
I know parent coordinators that I believe if I called them up and said, I have a guy calling me or a girl, whoever it is, saying that their spouse wants to get divorced, but they really want to work on their marriage. And they think some of the issues are communication and how to deal and how to raise the kids, and they don't communicate well and they fight about it, that maybe you can help them as a parent coordinator. What's wrong with that?
I'm not judging. I don't see anything wrong with it.
No,
Call the people who need to be on your team, whether you're married or divorced. That's great. And so that's when I read this question, I immediately thought, like, is the divorce process, to show you where my brain is, the divorce process is so arduous that you'd prefer to stay married. That's what I thought. I like your answer much better.
I actually think that's a great reading. I have to go talk to lawyers and get a divorce. It's just, let's just stay married.
It's not worth it. Let's stay married.
That's a good one. Well, I hope that this helps, Blue.
Yeah. Next question, another one from the website. I have a family attorney, and I recently find out when I called the court that he never filed my quadro. And my worst nightmare is I can't get in contact with him, neither phone calls, email, text. And when I go to his office and wait for him, I'm not quite sure how to read that. It's stressful. I'm frustrated because I don't know why it happened, what to do. It's been over a year already. What do you think?
Okay. I have some good news for you. He or she is not the only family law attorney out there. So if you're not getting a response from your family law attorney on this issue, go look for another attorney. Here's the good news. More good news. You're talking about a quadro, which is a qualified domestic relations order. So for the people that are new listeners or you haven't dealt with this issue, this order is used to divide up retirement accounts that are governed under federal law called ERISA. So think of pension plans, just as a simple one. There's others, but 401ks, there's others. Okay. That can be done after the final judgment. So the fact that it's been over a year already is not good, but it's not the worst I've seen. You just need to get a lawyer to go look at your final judgment, figure out what we need to do with the quadro, and get a quadro attorney. Now, if you are in the state of Florida, there are a lot of quadro attorneys out there. We have someone here at NLG that does them. But also, we have Matt Lundy, who is a guest on this show, that is a quadro attorney. And he is licensed in many states. I don't know how many, but I think Pete, when he was here, was like 4 or 5 different states.
Yeah, he's all over.
So if you just go in and well, Pete, let's just put in the show notes on Matt Lundy's contact information for his law firm. And then you can reach out to Matt Lundy and maybe he'll be able to help you.
So when you're finished reaching out to Andy to propose him for dates, call Matt Lundy because he's great.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And maybe when things don't work out with Andy, Matt can refer you to.
Matt's available.
No, not Matt. He'll refer you. He's a nice guy, not like Andy.
He's all about referrals. Look, how important is it to? I mean, you keep referring to quadro attorneys versus other attorneys. So you personally, Seth Nelson, you don't do quadros.
That's correct. Now, the reason I originally didn't do quadros is because I knew that I had to learn it up and down and be really great at it, because that quadro, if it's dividing a pension, might not be divided for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And I wasn't confident early in my career to make sure that I was going to take a risk for a client to do something that I didn't know whether it's actually going to work 10 or 20 years down the road.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. And I didn't want to be on the hook 10 or 20 years down the road when it comes back and like, oh, you made a mistake. I was like, oh my
Hmm.
God. Right. But also the time it takes to learn how to do quadros, because each employer does it differently. And so it's dealing a lot with the plan administrators,
Hmm.
takes more time at my currently hourly rate compared to people that just focus on quadros because they've done it a lot and they can get it done much more
Yeah.
quickly than I can. So I can just refer it to someone else. Now we have, as you know, Kristen Scully is a new member of our firm, attorney, excellent, and she does quadros. So we
Okay.
do them in house now. But depending, we'll send them to Matt or whatever.
Hmm.
But yeah, we always like to try to help, and she does a great job of them.
Okay. Well, great news. You can do your quadro after the divorce. You're okay. Thank you for writing that question. This another one comes in from anonymous. We'll call them Red. I see courts starting to look at removing no-fault divorces as an option. What does that mean for me if I want a divorce, but it's not like he's cheating or abusing me or something? Am I trapped? If the law changes while I'm in the middle of a divorce, would that affect things? Could he come back and file for an appeal based on new laws to annul the divorce? This I find this fascinating. What first of all, set the stage for us. What are we talking about with a no-fault divorce?
So a no fault divorce is what it typically is in almost every jurisdiction across the country now, which means you just have to say there's irreconcilable differences
Hmm.
and you're done. You're not going to court and saying, he abuses me, he cheats on me, he is psychologically abusive to me. You don't have to have a reason to get divorced other than you guys don't get along anymore and it's not going to change.
I didn't have to have a reason when I said I want to break up with you in the eighth grade. Why should I have to have a reason now?
Exactly. So, what's happening, and this is pretty hot in the news these days. So, this is a really good question, very timely. I think just recently it was on NPR.
Okay.
Um, there are some state legislatures that are trying to rescind the no fault issues and now make it a requirement that you have to have a reason to get divorced. So I think this is a horrible idea. Historically, this was a way to keep women in marriages despite the fact that they were not healthy relationships. And eventually the law evolved and said, we're not going to get into the nitty gritty and air everybody's dirty laundry in court for a reason to get divorced. What we're going to do is say it's no fault. If you want to get married, you can get married. And if you want to get divorced, you can get divorced. There are going to be some very simple requirements that they're irreconcilable differences. That's what it is in Florida. And when we go to court and have to prove irreconcilable differences, I just ask the question, are there? They say yes. Then I ask, is there anything the court can do to save your marriage, such as sending you to marriage counseling or anything of the like? And the answer is no. Now, if one person says, yes, I want to work on our marriage, the court sometimes will say, I'm going to pause this proceeding, go to marriage counseling. Other courts are like, if they don't want to go, I'm not going to send them. So it just
Hmm.
depends on the judge. So let me answer the next part. What happens if the law changes in the middle of your divorce?
Hmm.
When new law gets passed, it usually says when the effective date is. And so it might say this new law is in effect as of July 1st, 2025, and it applies to any pending case or any case that gets filed after that date. So, or it could say it only applies to cases that get filed after that date. So it just depends on what the law says when it's enacted and how is it enacted.
But just to clarify, so if I'm in the, let's say you're in trial and trial is the date that the law changes. Tuesday, the law changes. When you come back to court on Wednesday, are you arguing against the new law?
If it's any pending case, yep, that's exactly what I'm
Okay.
doing.
All right. I think that's important to be clear because that's
Thank you for that.
actually sort of terrifying.
Yeah,
A little bit.
not for lawyers, but yeah,
You guys. Okay.
I know. We're
I know. Here's what we've got. I got a couple of questions that I think you're going to have an easy time with. So let's just see how you do. Number one, another one from the website. Equitable distribution. How is this typically determined when one spouse is high earning and the other is underemployed or part-time childcare, not full-time childcare provider or homemaker?
This is a great question because let's go back to one of the very first shows we did, Peace, parenting plan, equitable distribution, alimony, child support, everything else. This question mixes two of those concepts. So we're going to untangle them.
Okay.
Equitable distribution is the division of assets and debts. And we do that by identifying all the assets that each party is titled in their own name, jointly titled with their spouse, or titled with a third party or entity. Notice I'm saying titled, not owned, because we have identification, then we go to classification. Are those debts marital, which means they'll be divided? Non-marital, which means they're not divided 50-50. Whoever owns it as a non-marital property keeps it, or has it as a non-marital debt has to pay it. Not part of the division of assets and debts, as in being split. Then we have some assets and some debts that might be both marital and non-marital, have different components. And then we have valuation and then distribution, who gets it. None of that has to deal with your income. Mm-hmm. None of that has to deal with if someone's underemployed or a part-time child care provider. Those topics deal with alimony.
Right.
And alimony is need and ability to pay, paying one spouse or former spouse money after the divorce is over to help them maintain a certain standard of living. And as we know in Florida, the law has changed on that. So to answer equitable distribution, it doesn't impact it at all. To answer the alimony portion of this, it depends on your state. So all of this is check your local jurisdiction, but generally speaking, equitable distribution is a different category than alimony. But the fact scenario that's given here falls under alimony in Florida family law, but check your local jurisdiction.
Okay. And because follow-up question, just because the writer asked it this way, when you have a high income earner and an underemployed or part-time person, what if you have a high income earner and a slightly less high income earner, but still high income earner? And, how does the court deal with alimony when everybody's making fine money, maybe just not quite at the same amount?
So that's a great question. So that goes back to need and ability to pay. And that is based upon the standard of living. So let's say someone's making, I'm making up numbers now, $10 million a year.
Okay.
The other spouse is making $6 million a year.
Great numbers. I aspire to those numbers.
But they're horrible with money. They spend it all. And the standard of living is outrageously high. Mm-hmm. The court might say the $6 million earner needs $1 million of alimony because she doesn't have enough, or he doesn't have enough. They could do that. I don't think that would happen at those numbers. I think the court would say you get every single amazing aspect of your married life together. There's 2 households now.
Yeah.
But let's take it a little different route. Someone makes, and this is all high income earners. What do we mean by that? Someone makes $200,000, the other makes $100,000.
Okay.
It's double. Now, $100,000 is a lot of income. 200 is a lot of income in a lot of people's mind. Top 1%er sometimes, right? There could be alimony in that case. Mm-hmm. Right? So it all, typical lawyer answer, depends.
Yeah. Okay. Need and ability to pay. All right.
And then there's 35% in Florida now of the net, the difference. So there's all that on the podcast that we've done before. But check the local jurisdiction.
We can put the link to that particular show in the notes too, because I think that's going to be a good one. Okay. Will you please, Seth? Another question from the website. Will you please discuss the law regarding inheritance in Florida?
Happy to. So I'm going to discuss it on how inheritance impacts family law. A gift during the marriage from one spouse to the other spouse is marital property. You go out and for your husband's birthday, you buy him those golf clubs he's always wanted, the boat that he's always wanted. You get divorced. He wants to keep the golf clubs and the boat. That's fine. He owes you half the value of those things back.
Okay.
The reason why I'm pointing that out is a gift from a non-spouse during the marriage to one of the spouses is a non-marital gift. Pete, if I give you a boat for your birthday
Mm-hmm.
and it's titled in your name and you maintain it as your separate property, you never put your wife's name on it, and you go to get divorced, that is your boat and you don't owe her half the value because I bought it for you.
Right.
Inheritance is a gift from a decedent, someone who's passed on, to an individual. And if you maintain that separately, it is non-marital property.
And maintaining it separately means no commingling funds in bank accounts, right?
Don't put their name on it. Exactly.
Okay.
Don't use it for living expenses. Now, in Florida, that would not be part of equitable distribution. But if you get to alimony or the attorney's fees and you have all this money from this inheritance, the court can say, well, I'm allowed to look to your non-marital assets to see whether you can pay attorney's fees. I can look to your non-marital assets to see if you have income off of them to pay alimony, maybe not get to the principle of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it impacts Florida family law.
I think we're going to roll with one more. You got one more in you?
I got it. I got two more in me, Pete.
Oh dear. Okay. Here we go. Another one from the website. I'm the wife. How do I get a favorable appraisal for our house?
So it doesn't matter whether you're the wife or the husband on this. And by favorable, I don't know what you mean. By favorable, do you mean that you want to keep the house, so you want it to be a low appraisal? Or that he wants to keep the house and you want it to be a high appraisal? So
Okay.
my advice is don't play the game. Get a reputable appraisal from a reputable appraiser that is qualified, that does them in your area. And remember that an appraisal is a snapshot in time, usually looking backwards, where a market analysis from a realtor is like, hey, this is what I think you can sell for it today because this is what's recently sold my comps, but here's where the market's moving, right? Mm-hmm. They're kind of pushing the envelope, or, hey, the market's diving, where sometimes that isn't picked up on an appraisal, right? So get someone good, get someone that your lawyer has worked with, that they know how they testify, because just having a great report doesn't mean anything if they can't back it up in court with their testimony.
Wow. I think it's, you got me thinking. I feel like the way this question was presented is, and no judgment, but it is probably the most cynical way to ask the question, because it presumes unfairness in
right, because
a
you're trying to get favorable. Right.
Yeah, right. And it
Right.
presumes you're not going to be able to find. I mean, this isn't like, New York City, 1985. Like we're not. I think a lot of appraisers are pretty good.
Yeah, but I certainly know appraisers that do good work, and they're consistently higher than other appraisers that I also think do good work.
Because okay, that's
they're,
fair.
They're both in the range.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this one's consistently higher.
Ranges matter. Yeah, right.
Right.
That's true.
And so if I have an appraisal that my client wants to keep the house, I'm not using these two appraisers because in the range, they're going to be high.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the other two that are also in the range to be low. And then when the other side gets one of the ones that's high, I've worked with them before. I kind of know why they're high, and I kind of try to beat them up on that in court, professionally and ethically. But in Florida family law, if one appraisal says the house is worth 2 million and the other one says it's worth, let's say, 1.5, it's in the range.
Yeah.
The court can't divide the difference. The court has to pick 2 million or 1.5.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Seth, what? Why? It's
Because,
math, man.
no, because the assumption there, Pete, is that they're both right. They're both in the range. Let's just split the difference. But the court is required under Florida family law to make a decision based upon competent substantial evidence. There was no competent substantial evidence that it was the middle number.
Oh my God, that's
It
so
was
hard to
one
swallow.
or the other, right?
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
you could put on, and this is clever lawyer shit that I do, you could put on your client, right? Because maybe they had the lower number and you're afraid that the judge is going to take the higher number and hurt you. You could put your client on and your client can say, I think it's actually right in the middle, judge. And here's why. And if your client is owner of the property, they can testify to value. And now you've given a new hook for the judge to hang their opinion on. They can say, I'm not going with either of the appraisers. I think they were both wrong, but I think that the owner of the property knows best. And I'm picking the middle one.
Yeah.
And we all know what the court did, and we all know what the lawyer did to get there. But they have to testify truthfully if that's what they think. You don't want to just have them pick it and lie. Now, what judges usually do, because this just hurt your soul, Pete.
Yeah.
Let's say they take the higher number and they know that it hurt the wife. They're going to give the wife something else in a different area where they have discretion. They're going to make up for it.
Comes around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. These are really good questions people are putting out there for us and for
you want to do one
listeners.
more? I think this is a good one.
I'm good. I think. Oh, I got one here.
Do you want to pick it?
Yeah, it's
unprecedented.
I know. I just contacted Andy. He's the worst person. Do not ask me to date him again. Anybody else that you might have. That was quick.
That comes from Jaded in Arizona. I will say, let me just take a brief break because producer Andy is doing real-time follow-up, and I incorrectly said that Blue, I said the name was Blue. Blue is a code name and was anonymous. That was fine. Blue and red. I was doing a color game myself, and because I like Quentin Tarantino, there's always Mr. Blue, Mr. You remember.
That's right. Why do I have to be Mr.
Follow-up
Pink?
is you said that we talked about the peace process early in the podcast, but it turns out that was our original podcast, Splitsville, that never aired. We only just talked about the peace process a few episodes ago this season.
That's embarrassing. I should be required to turn in my podcast badge or something.
It is delightful. Okay, here we go. My husband and I, married 11 years with 3 kids, are in agreement that we're miserable and the marriage needs to end. However, our last hurdle, the guilt-inducing narrative of who pulled the trigger and killed the marriage first. As irrational as it is, we both don't want to be the one who ended it. Legally, what is the most mutual/equal course of action we can take? A joint petition of some kind? Does there always need to be one person starting it? Or is there legal documentation that says both this person and this person are filing this together at the same time? Thanks in advance. This podcast has been absolutely invaluable. Thank you for this question.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you I'm glad to hear that we're helping. Okay. What we need to do here is focus on what we can control. Neither one of you has to be the one who pulled the trigger first, because I'm reading this as talking about who files the divorce paperwork.
Right.
So this is how we handle this. 1, you get everything resolved before you file. You have a marital settlement agreement. You have your parenting plan. It's all ready to go. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Both of you will have to, one of you is going to have to file. So let's just start there. You can't do a joint petition anywhere that I've ever heard of in any state. Someone files they're called the petitioner. The other one in Florida is called the respondent. What you're saying here is nobody wants to be the petitioner. But in that petition, no matter who files it, it is going to say that me and my soon to be former spouse have worked out all of our issues regarding the division of assets and debts, how we're doing alimony, how we're doing child support, what the parenting plan is, what we're doing with attorney's fees. We've worked it all out, Judge. And you're sending this to the other lawyer. I'm assuming the other spouse has a lawyer. They'll accept the service so you don't have somebody with a process server serving you. And you're going to answer and you're going to say, I agree. Our marriage didn't work. We're splitting up. I'm okay getting the divorce. We're good with the kids. We've worked everything out, Judge. And you're going to go to court and nobody's going to remember your case, thankfully, because you don't want lawyers to remember your case because it means they were nightmares and cost lots of money. And you're going to be okay. Do not, please do not let the court system get in your way and get in your head about who pulled the trigger. I will share with you. When I got divorced 18 years ago, under Florida family law, it was required, Pete, in the parenting plan that somebody had to be the primary parent and the other one was the secondary parent.
Wow.
In the divorce paperwork, I was the secondary parent because I did not give a shit what some old guys in the legislature came up with in the statute and what some governor signed. I was not going to let that define my relationship with my child. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't in competition with his mother to be the primary or the secondary parent. I wanted her to be a great mom, which she is and has always been. And I wanted to be the best dad I could be. And that's that.
What is the expectation behind those terms, those labels? Somebody has an intention to define what the responsibilities are for first chair parent and second chair parent.
It is old school way of thinking, and it's not necessarily gone. There's a lot of people that think that when babies are born, moms need to be doing the caregiving more than the dads. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So, but in the law, we've evolved because our society has evolved. And I think in very good ways that allows, back to one of the questions, women get out of marriages without having to prove fault. I think that if you want to be a dad, be a dad. It does not come embossed with an invitation, right? You got to step up to the plate. So please do not let the way the law is designed trip you up on two parents that are trying to work together and get things done and who pulled the trigger. And if worse comes to worse, you can rock, paper, scissors for it.
Right. Your kids don't need to know who's first chair, second chair. No. I like that better. This was great. Seth, thank you for taking all these questions. You did a great job.
Thanks for our listeners and people bringing in the questions. This is great.
I am personally, as one of the people behind the website, I am deeply gratified that people are using our new question tool over there. You can ask the tool. It interviews the show. I take those questions that you put in that little box on the website, and I bring them right here. So when I say question from the website, it's from the AI, the model, the robot that lives on our website that interviews past episodes. And if we don't have a great answer in there for you, we're going to talk about it on this show. So keep using that. It's great to see these questions come in. And to those of you who visit howtosplitatoaster.com and actually click the button to submit a question, we love you too. Thank you so much. And we hope this has been helpful in at least in some part guiding the way you were thinking about your divorce.
I got to tell you, the only disappointing thing on the questions, Pete, is no one asked us when our birthday are and what size shirt we wear. But other than that, I think they're doing great.
That's right. And my favorite color is kind of a silvery blue. And I would like a Toyota GR40.
You know someone's going to write in, we want to know Andy's birthday and give him a microphone.
Yeah. We'd like to know when Andy's birthday and give him some agency. You guys don't know.
Yeah.
Andy runs this whole thing. And we're only giving him trouble because as we record this weekend he's leaving for Portugal. That's right. Andy gets to see the world and we're going to be here. So
That's right.
all right. Thanks, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. We appreciate your time and attention. Don't forget to send us those questions. In the meantime, on behalf of Seth Nelson, America's favorite divorce attorney, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll see you next time right here on How to Split a Toaster, a divorce podcast about saving your relationships.